Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode we're going to be previewing Ohio State versus Indiana. And I wanted to do a couple shorter videos, just kind of one-offs, kind of giving you a preview of some of the players you should watch, some guys that have the most to prove, and I figured I wanted to start with Ohio State versus Indiana because this is the biggest matchup ever. You know, this isn't Ohio State versus Michigan, but there's a lot of prospects on Indiana that really caught my eye last year, who I think if they have big games in this game could see their draft stock rise, on top of other guys at Ohio State who some of them I have a pretty good clear about them, other ones have a lot to prove, and I just kind of want to go through all the guys that I think you definitely should check out when you check out Ohio State versus Indiana, if that is a game that you want to check out. So starting with probably the top prospect to me at Ohio State, like if the draft was to happen today, this would be the guy I would draft, and that's Billy Price. The offensive guard that's there. He's someone that has good mobility, not the strongest guard ever. I mean, that was the biggest sort of issue I had with him, is that he was very Xavier Su'a-Filo-like in terms of his traits on film. So he's able to kind of get leverage and maintain, but he doesn't drive people. He doesn't finish his blocks consistently, and he doesn't really have a mean streak either from a lot of the games that I've seen of him. So he's just someone that I think is a solid guard, could fit in in different kind of systems, but not necessarily someone I would consider like a first rounder type or a Zach Martin type or he's not exactly that type of guard prospect, but he's definitely decent. And then of course you have Jamarco Jones. He's the offensive tackle that's there. He's going to get a ton of press, a lot of people are going to want to make him into something that he's not. We'll see how he performs this year, but he's definitely someone that people are going to be talking about a lot because he's a Ohio State tackle, and those guys sometimes get a lot of press and stuff like that. I still want to see more from him, but he's definitely a guy you should check out because he plays at Ohio State, he's playing offensive tackle, and he has gotten a good deal of buzz as well, as most Ohio State guys get. And then on top of that, we have Mike Weber at running back. Weber is a guy who's built very similarly to Ezekiel Elliott, but he has not produced like Ezekiel Elliott. That is the only thing about Mike Weber, is that he hasn't quite performed like Ezekiel Elliott has in terms of just overall production yet. But if he does, this is a guy that could challenge, for a top 5, top 3 running back status in this class. This is already a very, very talented running back class, and I think Mike Weber could add a lot of stuff to it that's very interesting. And then, of course, you get to Tyquan Lewis at defensive end. He's someone who plays with a lot of power, low center to gravity type. Not a high-end draft pick guy. I don't see Tyquan Lewis becoming like a first round or anything like that. But he's just a solid overall player, and I was much more impressed with him versus Sam Hubbard when it comes to just leverage, power, and just his overall assortment of moves as well. He's just a much more refined player than Hubbard. And then the last player is Jerome Baker at linebacker. He's another one of these Ohio State linebackers who plays a lot like a Sam linebacker, doesn't quite put in a ton of production, but is he finally going to be that Ohio State linebacker that produces a ton? Because I've been waiting, guys. We had the Darren Lee thing. That isn't exactly doing that well in the NFL right now. We've had the Raequan McMillan situation, and unfortunately he's injured, so we have to wait and see what happens with him. But I wasn't the most impressed with him either, just from a flexibility standpoint. Can Jerome Baker finally be a super athletic linebacker that is also super productive? We'll see. And then guys who have the most to prove to me. I think the guys who have the most to prove, Sam Hubbard at defensive end. He's a guy that a lot of people are talking about as a top 10 overall defensive end prospect in terms of top 10 overall in the draft. And he's just not done enough to me to be considered as a top 10 overall player in this draft class. He needs to be a lot more productive. This isn't a guy coming off a Jadeveon Clowney-like sophomore career. This isn't a guy coming off of a Joey Bosa, sophomore career. This is a guy who hasn't even produced like a Myles Garrett prior to coming into his final year. So he has a lot to prove to me based on a production standpoint, because he's been pretty much below average across the board in most of the production metrics that matter to being a high-quality player. And then, of course, you have Paris Campbell. He's a guy who has gotten a ton of hype in the offseason. A lot of people are hyping him up to be the next Curtis Samuel. He'll be used a lot like Curtis Samuel in this offense, playing the kind of H-back Y position. And we'll see what happens with him. He was not very productive last year for obvious reasons, because Curtis Samuel was in his spot. But Campbell is definitely somebody a lot of people have been hyping up, and we'll see what he brings to the table. Marcus Bott, tight end, is another guy that I've heard some buzz about him, but he just hasn't done enough on film from a blocking standpoint to even a receiving standpoint to really warrant a high draft pick from the film that I've seen of him, but we'll see. And then the last guy, well, actually a couple other guys, JT Barrett, of course. He's a guy that I want to see him get better in terms of intermediate and deep ball accuracy. Those are the two areas that he just fails in. Every time I've seen tape of JT Barrett from last year, the 4 times I saw him last year, he just failed when it came to intermediate and deep ball accuracy. But if he can improve that area this year, then I think he definitely deserves to get some of the hype that he's getting. But the hype that he's getting right now, I mean, even day 2 to me is too high for JT Barrett. And then, of course, Damon Webb and Denzel Ward. Those are 2 DBs that really didn't do much of anything last year for the most part. And those are the 2 guys that a lot of people have been hyping up as the next sort of Malik Hooker breakout candidate to Marshawn Lattimore breakout candidate, or Gary and Conley candidate. We'll see what these guys do. I have not seen enough. I haven't seen them produce enough to really say either way about both those guys. But again, it's a new season. We'll see how they perform, and we'll go from there. And then the last group at Indiana specifically, there's 4 prospects that I think you definitely should check out. One is Tigray Scales at linebacker. He's someone that, based on my linebacker production metrics, performed pretty well. But size-wise, he's a little iffy, looks a little small on film. But I want to see what he looks like this year. Did he put on 5-10 more pounds? Is he playing a little bit more powerful? Those are a lot of the issues that I saw on him on film with him, is just power, the ability to shed blocks, disengage. Those are things I want to see him improve upon. The next prospect at Indiana I definitely think you should check out as well is Nate Hoff at defensive tackle. He's a guy that last year, this matchup last year, Nate Hoff completely destroyed that offensive line of Ohio State. He was powerful. He was getting into the backfield. He was moving people left and right, creating a ton of havoc. And I think if Nate Hoff can bring that same game this year, he might be a huge riser in the draft. And also if he maintains his production as well, because he had a very big game against Ohio State, but he wasn't able to carry that on throughout the entire career. So if he can be consistent and continue to play the way that I think he can play, he's a defensive tackle prospect that I think you need to keep track of, because he showed a lot of really impressive things in that Ohio State game last year, and probably should show a lot of things in this game this year as well. And then also Rashard Faint at cornerback. My big thing with him, is he bigger? Is he stronger? He is a fast cornerback, but he's not the most powerful cornerback, and that's always something that kind of bugs me about guys like that. And then the very last prospect at Indiana that I definitely think you should check out is Simmie Cobbs Jr. He's a big body wide receiver who needs to prove he can dominate targets and dominate the catch point more consistently and just be a bigger part of that offense. So again, we're coming back to the P word, production. But he has a lot of the same things that people like about Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard, of course, and again, nothing against Alan Lazard, but if you like Alan Lazard, you're going to love Simmie Cobbs Jr. He's just a big, thickly built possession wide receiver type, and I just really hope he continues to develop and has a big year this year production wise, because I think there's a lot of good things from him that I've seen, and I just hope he improves in the future. So again, my name is James Coburn. You can find my work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics, and if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Peace.